In today's video, we are going to do some upcycling of a gorgeous national parks calendar. I used to have a whole blog where I just did upcycled projects, and they're very near and dear to my heart. You know, I love making things out of book pages and magazines. And this gorgeous national park calendar caught my eye when I was straightening up the coffee table. And I decided to use it to once again transform something that could be a Valentine's project into something completely unrelated to Valentine's. So don't put away those things that you bought in January for Valentine cards, because we're going to make an incredible national park card with it. So I pulled out some of the calendar pages that I found particularly beautiful, and I am gluing one of the pages to a piece of lightweight white cardstock because that's going to make it sturdier for die cutting, and it'll really make this project work. I love this sort of foggy tree scene. And what I did was I took this love die and I just used it like a little camera to kind of look at different scenes in the calendar and figure out what I really wanted to capture with those die cut letters. This Arizona photo is so beautiful. I just love that landscape look, and some of these can be so colorful. So I cut out this beautiful sunburst one that I caught just on the edge of the O. I love this scene. Love, get it? And I also ran the die through a few times with just white cardstock because I really want to build up these letters and make them really thick. So I have the negative and positive spaces of the calendar portion. Don't forget the little middle of the O. And I have the negative and positive spaces that the die creates. So you're going to get multiple uses out of just a few die cuts. So now I will take the magazine and cardstock letters and I will glue them to just some white letters to make them triple, quadruple thick, actually, with the first layer of cardstock that I already had underneath the calendar. And this really makes for a beautiful textured card. So I feel like it's really worth the time. This is sort of a modified eclipse technique, if you will, and I just love the way these letters look when they're all stacked up. So now I have these pieces and I have some white card bases that I cut, and so this is going to be very simple from here on out. I'm using white glue to go around the negative space that the die creates, and be sure you get all those little pieces that sort of protrude into the open space on the E, on the V, etc. These things will lift up if you don't glue them down, especially if they go through the mail. So make sure that you take the time to put glue on all of those. Now, this is a beautiful card all by itself. You know I love a white on white card. And I think this is one of those cover dies that makes stunning white on white cards. So feel free to leave it just like this. Now, I am going to show you how sometimes you can get little creases depending on the weight of your cardstock around the openings in a cover die. The paper sort of stretches as it goes through the die cutting machine. And it's so easy to remove with a Teflon bone folder that has a really sharp edge, like this one that I'm using. Some of them have kind of soft edges. These sharp edge ones not only do better folds, but they also are great at getting out these little creases. Now, I had some ink on my hands. I was doing mixed media before this, so my hands had a little leftover on them, so I sanded that off of this beautiful white cardstock. So now you can see why I saved the negative space. That's going to make a beautiful card as well. But you have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different options for where to put these letters on this card. And a friend of mine suggested that one cool thing about this die is that you can do it diagonally. So I put it on diagonally after that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I know I keep saying love. Sorry, it's just the theme of today's video. It's love. So this was my original position that I was going to put them in, but then I could not get past how cute that was when it went on the diagonal. It makes it kind of an interactive card. So I love the way the letters stick up. I think this is so cute. And we'll make a second card with the negative space when we are done with this. Now, one of the really nice things about having the quadruple thick letters is that they sort of snap right into that little opening. So it's not really possible to get them crooked. They like click in almost like those magnetic letters that we all had on our fridge when we were kids that taught us how to spell probably naughty words if you were anything like me and all my friends. But anyway, it's very easy to get this in there snugly, and especially if you're using white glue and you get a little bit of wiggle room to make sure you really catch that edge. And look how thick those are. That is so fun. It's a card that people are going to want to touch when they get it, and you know that's my favorite kind of card to make, is the one that has a little bit of texture. So now here we are going to use the negative space to create kind of a bolder element across the front of the card with the remainder of that same scene that I used on the other card. So I put a little bit of glue on this strip. You'll want to tape the die down if you're going to use the negative space like this, because you'll want that piece of paper to be straight when you go to put it on your card. So I aligned that first, and now I'll put the whole panel down onto my card base after I put some glue on the back. So again, make sure you get into all those little pokey-outy sections before you put this on. Use all of your patience to make sure that you do that, because it really does make a difference in how the card holds up in the mail. So this die cuts a full A2 card front. So this is 5.5 by 4.25 when it is cut out. And see these little creases that I was talking about earlier? Those can happen. It's no big deal, no fault of the die. It's just the way paper stretches and moves when it's going through a die cutting machine with a larger, longer die like this. So just take a second and use that good sharp bone folder to get those little creases out of there. It's no problem. Now, with this little centerpiece, I put glue on it so I could wiggle it around. But the best way to make sure that it's completely straight is to take one of your spare letters and pop that into the opening, and then make sure that that center bit is exactly aligned with that letter. Then just pop it out with your multi-purpose tool, and everything is perfectly straight, despite me. Absolutely in spite of my inability to make anything straight. So here are a couple of other scenes that I pulled out. One of them is a sky scene, which I just think is so beautiful, and then a desert, sort of morning, evening, sunset-y kind of scene. But think of all the possibilities of things that you can cut with this die and build beautiful scenic cards that have a non-Valentine-y message of love in them. Here are the finished cards. Thanks so much for watching.